always returned to find him on the other side of the door. "See you tomorrow," I said as I turned away. I had no way of knowing if this was true. Eventually, it wouldn't be, because Finn, Gil, and I never stayed in one place longer than a few weeks. But it was part of the ruse. The ruse that my friends and I had created. Angel Jones, stripper by night, demon hunter by day. Although the demon hunter part wasn't going nearly as well. At least once a week, Lysy used her remaining connections at the Unseelie court to obtain books, journals, and scrolls on the Dark Prince, and we pored over them in whatever dim motel room we were staying at. So far, none of us had found anything to help me kill an immortal from another dimension. And we couldn't go home until Lucifer was dead. Swallowing a discouraged sigh, I crossed the parking lot and began the long walk to my car. It was parked on a back road, away from prying eyes and men who hoped to catch me outside the club. It was an ancient Taurus I'd spotted in someone's yard a few weeks back, a faded "for sale" sign on the windshield. We'd needed a different vehicle, since mine was easy to recognize, and it displayed Colorado plates. I only missed it when we were on a long drive and Finn wore his wolf form, taking up the entire back seat and filling the cab with his distinctly canine scent. Not that I smelled much better. My skin reeked of beer, sweat, and men, made worse when I shoved my nose into the collar of my coat, desperately seeking warmth. Nightmare or not, it was the middle of the night, and temperatures were so low that I could see every breath. I reluctantly left the glow of the streetlights behind and headed into the trees, looking back to make sure no one had followed, just as Lysy had taught me. Bringing Finn or Gil along on my shifts had started to draw too much attention, even when they'd waited outside. So now I sent frequent texts and never went anywhere without looking over my shoulder. It was a fantastic way to live. I suppressed yet another sigh and moved deeper into the darkness, deeper into the cold. The war between winter and spring was ferocious, especially in northern Wyoming, where we'd been for the past 3 weeks. The brown grass was still struggling to become more. Every morning, a curtain of frost hovered over the world, and birds did their best to coax the sun out with their high voices. But there was no sign of those birds now, and the moon was a faint crescent overhead. I gazed up at it, wondering if the people I loved were somewhere looking at the night sky too. Then a sound disturbed the stillness. I stopped, hardly daring to breathe. I scanned the darkness and listened for any other noises. Nothing moved. A hush clung to the air. It was no different than the other nights I'd made this walk, but unease crept under my skin. I turned and kept walking, this time at a quicker pace. I pushed some branches out of the way, and that was when I heard it again. The sound. I imagined a shoe landing on a stick, snapping it in half. I spun around, but only dark, faceless trees stared back. Lysy's name rose to my tongue, but I didn't want to summon her unless it was an emergency. Unbidden, my mind went to the last conversation we'd had. That night, we were somewhere in Utah. The harsh lights of a gas station shone down on the rows of pumps and the stained concrete. I stood alone, hands shoved in my coat pockets, staring at the climbing numbers in front of me. A tinny recording played overhead about a 2-for-1 special on donuts. Gil sat in the car, picking at the edges of his nails, and Finn was off in the darkness somewhere. I fought the urge to fidget. We still had 3 hours of driving ahead, and I wanted to get it over with. Being crammed in a small space with Gil and Finn was like putting 2 chemicals in a vial and hoping it didn't explode. Most of the mythology about supernatural creatures was bullshit, but the humans had gotten one thing right. As a general rule, vampires and werewolves did not get along.